Xhentilo Karaj. I work as Senior Data Analyst at Euroclear. I'm here today to talk about the challenges of using process mining in internal audit. I believe that some of these challenges are also applicable in other fields where you can use process mining as well. So a couple of words about Euroclear. Euroclear is actually a very important actor of the financial industry nowadays. Why? Because Euroclear provides financial market infrastructure to more than 2,000 prominent financial institutions around the world. What does it mean, financial market infrastructure? It means post-trade services. Whenever a trade of a security, such as a bond or an equity, happens between two parties, one party is a seller, the issuer, and the other party is the investor, the buyer of that security, there are some certain activities actually that occur after the trade that make sure that the buyer of the security gets the possession of the security, while the issuer, the seller of the security, will get the money back. And Euroclear is actually a very IT-centric company. In our systems, there are millions and millions of transactions that are processed on a daily basis, and more than there are several terabytes of data that are passing through those systems on a daily basis, actually. But I'm here today to talk about internal audit. First of all, are there any auditors in the audience? Oh, okay, we have quite so many auditors today. All right, so let's first define what internal audit is. Internal audit is that function of the organization which provides independent, reasonable assurance and insight on three key elements: on governance, risk management, and internal controls that the organization has put in place in order to achieve its objectives. Each organization, each company operates in a given industry, and it has a set of objectives. One objective, for example, might be that we want to expand on a particular market by 20% or by 30% over the next year. That's a very robust objective. But then, with this kind of objective, there are several risks associated with that. One drastic risk might be that several employees might leave your company. Why? Because they might be overwhelmed by work if you don't really measure the well-being of the employees, and if you don't check that they are not working overtime in order to reach this kind of objective. And what do you put in place? You put in place some internal controls that will actually be used to monitor the well-being over time of employees, and also that they don't work extra hours, that you don't force your employees to work extra hours, etc., etc. And the purpose of the role of internal audit is actually to test the adequacy and the effectiveness of these internal controls that you have put in place in order to mitigate the risk. Each audit in our company goes usually through these four phases. So during the first phase, the business understanding phase, we try to understand from a high-level view the business process, the business line which we are going to audit. And then during the fieldwork phase, we actually perform the work. How do we perform the work? How do we conduct audit? So we conduct audit with traditional audit methods, such as doing questionnaires and doing interviews with the business representatives in order to understand how that process which we are auditing actually works in practice. Then we might analyze available documentation internally and externally as well. And we also might involve some data analytics techniques, from very simple techniques such as reconciliation among various data sets up to more complex ones such as machine learning or natural language processing, text mining. Process mining is actually one of the techniques in data analytics which we consider when conducting an audit. And afterwards, we have the clearance and the reporting phase. But first, during the business understanding phase, before deciding whether we will use process mining on a given audit, we have a checklist of four elements which we need to check before deciding that we are usually going for process mining involvement. So the first one is really simple. So we check whether the process which we're going to audit is actually supported by an information system. And nowadays, almost all of the processes are supported by information systems. But anyhow, there are still some processes which are actually done via Excel files here and there or via mailbox. And these ones are quite difficult to implement a process mining project on them. Let's say that the answer to the first question is yes. The second one, maybe the most important prerequisite for a process mining project is the existence of the event log. So we know that the activities on this, the activities that our colleagues in our departments are actually stored on this information system. But then, are these activities properly logged into the information system or not? Because if those activities are not logged into the information system, it means that you don't know what happened on each business record. Eventually, if the response to the first question is yes, we will check whether the majority of the operations that are performed on that information system are actually done by humans. Because we are not interested to check if the majority of the actions are performed by the machine. So you might have some processes that are almost fully automated. In that case, we are not much interested. In that case, we would actually perform an IT audit, which will provide assurance on the automated techniques that have been used in that information system. We want to check the work that is done by our colleagues, which we are auditing actually. And the end, we also it's good to have some available process documentation, some SOPs or some process flow charts. And this is quite good actually because it allows us to start from a status quo, and from there we will build our analysis later. All right. So during the fieldwork phase, we have 3 sub-phases when we employ a process mining project. We have data collection, data preprocessing, and process mining analysis. And now you have the full picture where we see process mining in a given audit project. And the business understanding has been intentionally left partially outside its frame because, as we said, we decide to go for a process mining project during the end of the business understanding when we already have that high-level view of the process which we'll audit. So let's start with the data collection first. However, before going to the data collection methods, I'm going to run through 3 key challenges that we have encountered from our experience of working in process mining through several years. So the first one, it has to do with the fact that auditors need to provide independent assurance. What does it mean? It means that auditors don't like to receive data from others. It means that auditors don't like to receive data from BI tools. Why? Because in BI tools, the data has already run through several rounds of transformation. So in conclusion, auditors want data in the most original form as possible, in the rawest format as possible. And that's where my job is and my team's job is. We as data analysts need to get direct access to the source systems. But however, you can imagine that we run dozens of audits on a yearly basis, and all of those audits might be running on several different information systems, and that becomes quite complex. And also getting access to each one of these systems is also difficult as well when you have organizations of thousands and thousands of people. And moreover, some learning curve is expected when you are encountering an application which you have never seen before. And eventually, in this case, we provide a tip to always have some additional budget when you're onboarding to a new IT application. The next one is about data volume. So in companies like Euroclear, you might easily encounter business processes that on a yearly basis are generating process logs like 50 million process logs on 50 million rows on a yearly basis. In this case, what you can do is you can actually split the data when you are extracting it from the source system, from the database, and then you can remerge this data together in the data analytics platform that you might be using. The third one is quite interesting as well. Why? Because this has to do with data completeness. And the most typical example here is the incomplete timestamp, incomplete activity timestamp. What do I mean by that? You can extract from the information system, you'll extract the event log, and in the timestamp, when you say timestamp, you expect to see their date, hour, minute, second, and sometimes millisecond as well. But however, in these kinds of cloud-based applications, software as a service applications, all of these ones that actually remove from you all the hustle of developing, implementing, deploying a new information system, there you get actually up and running in a few days. However, on the other hand, you actually, when you need your data, your data in the correct precision from that system, it's actually quite difficult to retrieve it. And what's the issue in this case? The issue is that if several activities are happening on the same date and you are only able to extract from the system only the date, but not the hour, the minute, or second, then it means that you cannot tell which activity happened before the other one. So you are missing the sequence of the activities, and eventually you cannot do process mining. However, one workaround here, if you are lucky, in the extract that you will receive from the system, you might have like an ID column for each of the log entries. And if that ID column is an integer, you can just order it, and the process mining tool will recognize the order, and eventually you'll get rid of the issue. So let's see now what type of data extraction methods we use. So our preferred one is the traditional relational databases, data warehouses, data lakes. Why? Because against this one, we can use SQL queries, and in SQL queries we can implement any kind of possible business logic with any type of filter, and we can extract the data eventually. However, more and more we are seeing that it's not quite possible to get to the backend database, to the source system of all of these information systems which we are auditing. Why? Because, as I said, with all the cloud-based applications, everything is going to the cloud now. All of these applications actually don't allow you to access the database, but however, they provide some APIs, mostly in the form of REST APIs. And in this case, you would need some software engineering skills actually to retrieve data through the APIs. And in our team, we have these skills because all of us have data analytics and some software engineering background, but otherwise, it's a task that need to be done by IT. And otherwise, if none of these methods is available, then you just resort to the manual data export from the application user interface. Okay, so we have already extracted the data. We have this intermediary step here called data preprocessing. Why don't we immediately go to the process mining analysis? You'll find out why. So I'm going to take one example process today, which is the client service process. I believe that in any organization nowadays we have one kind of client service process, where mostly done for complaints. Let's say where clients might call your company, or clients might send emails and so on and so forth. Let's say that you have implemented a ticketing tool in place, and I believe most companies have a ticketing tool or a customer relationship management CRM system in place. And you have provided a generic email address to the client so that the client can send an email to that generic email address. And eventually, whenever an email arrives to that mailbox, a new ticket will be automatically generated to the ticketing tool. And then the whole life cycle of the ticket will be managed within the ticketing tool, all the email communication and everything. So you will assign it to somebody, they will work on it. When they will finish working on that, they will send an email to the client, and eventually you will close the ticket. However, in practice, this process might be quite more complex. You will have phone calls, a lot of email communications, but I've just simplified it just for illustrative purposes. So let's start now. First of all, with, I believe, any kind of process mining project that you might have, the first thing that you do, what do you extract first from the system? You go to the status field. So I believe on any kind of process mining project, you always try to look for the event log at the status field. So you extract from the system the status changes. On this case, we had two status changes. The first one from new to in progress, and the second one from in progress to close. So we have the case ID, we have the activity, which is a new value, we have the timestamp of the operation as well. So let's import it to Disco. This is the result that you get. So most of my activities, most of my cases are actually starting with close. Some of them are starting with in progress. But my process starts with the new activity, not with in progress and not with close. What do I do to resolve this? We take into consideration the original value of the status field, which is the new here, the old value of the first change, and also the created time of the case, and we add a new entry into our event log, which with the activity new and with the timestamp, the creation date of the case. And we see now that all of my tickets are starting with the new activity. However, this is our current status changes event log. However, we said that we also had one activity which is called assigned. And as auditors, we are expecting that not everything is working perfectly, so we would expect some tickets to run through several assignees, so several people working on the same ticket. What do we do? As instead of the status field, now we go to the assigned to field. So we retrieve from the system all the changes of the assigned to field. And luckily, this case actually ran through two assignees. In the beginning, it was empty. It became user A and then user B. However, this kind of format is not easily to work in process mining. Why? Because in process mining, we need to define activities. So what do? We merge these two datasets together and we come up with a new activity which we call assigned. Some of you might say, okay, the first one is assigned, the next one is reassigned. However, when we import it into Disco, into the process mining tool, we can immediately spot the reassignments. So we don't need to add a new activity. We don't need to make the process complex because the activity itself is the assignment. And we can already see that the number of assigned activities is significantly larger than the number of unique tickets that we have. We are already spotting an observation here. However, we can exceed it even further. Why? Because we said that in our ticketing tool, we also manage all the email communications. What does it mean? It means that we can retrieve all the emails of the same ticket as well from the system. We can get something like this. So the first one is the original email that the client sent, which generated the ticket automatically in our system. The next one is interesting because it's an internal communication in the company. So they are writing, they are asking for assistance. And the third one is the actual resolution of the ticket, where we are actually communicating to the client that we have resolved the issue. However, again, as with the assigned to case, and this is even more complex, we don't have the activity. So in process mining, we need to define the activity. What is the activity in the first case? It's an email that is coming from the client. The second case is an internal email. Third case is email to the client. By leveraging some regular expressions, we have come up with this view right here. So this is our current standard event log, so status changes plus the assigned to changes. And on the right-hand side, we have the transformed emails dataset. What do we do now? You know how to play the game. You just merge them together and you come up with this view, which is the complete view. So you have the full life cycle of that particular client ticket. However, in practice, we've seen that there are also other types of data preprocessing operations. So the first one is the incomplete timestamp value. The other case is when you need to build, you actually literally need to build the event log based on several data objects. In this case that we had, we didn't need to build the event log because we started from the status changes and from there we enriched that one. However, in purchase to pay, for example, the people who know finance, you have purchase acquisition, purchase order, invoice, you have good receipt, you have payments. All of these objects are independent of each other. So you need to decide which one is the case ID, and then you also need to merge like dozens of tables with each other. And the list goes on and on. And the conclusion is that if you really need a high quality analysis, you need to spend some time on data preprocessing. All right, so let's go to the fancy stuff now. Process mining analysis. This is our expected process. How does it look like in practice? So this is how it looks like in practice. We see that all tickets are starting with an email from a client, which is good. Control is working. And then a new case is automatically generated, which is again working correctly. And then all of them have an assigned to, which is still okay. And then you have an email to the client, and eventually you have you close the ticket. You can immediately spot the first issue, which is that a very few number of tickets are actually using the in progress stages. Second one is about the reopened. You have like 700 tickets which are reopened. Third one is about multiple changes of assignees, which we already spotted during the data preprocessing phase. This one is interesting. Somehow you have these 340 tickets where the client is sending subsequent emails to you and you are not responding in between. So what's happening? The fifth case is about tickets that are actually being closed, but without sending an email beforehand to the client. So you're not communicating to the client, you're just closing the ticket. Let's put them all in one picture and let's try to categorize what issue types we have here. The first one and the foremost is the conformance issue. So tickets that are not moved in progress and tickets that don't contain an email to the client before closing the ticket, these ones are not conforming to the process design. Second one is interesting because all these tickets that are not moved to in progress, it means that the team leaders, the supervisors, they cannot tell how many tickets are actually being worked on at any point in time. Inefficiency, most of these tickets are actually adding unnecessary steps to the process and making it inefficient. And timeliness, we expect that all these multiple subsequent emails that are coming from the client, they are coming because we are not resolving the ticket on time. But let's take a step back now. So why are we really using process mining and what are the advantages of using process mining against the traditional audit approach? So as I said in the beginning, during the fieldwork phase, we perform audit by doing sampling. So out of those 5,000 tickets, we would have selected like 40 tickets, 50 tickets, and we would try to build the real process view based on those 40 or 50 tickets. We would interview several people from the business. We would gather documentation, whatever documentation is available. However, with process mining, we don't do almost none of that, but we just base the full analysis on the data that have been stored into the system because we believe that the data that are stored into the system tell the real picture. And eventually, the classical audit approach, due to the statistical sampling, 50 tickets out of 5,000 tickets, maybe you selected all the good ones, maybe you selected all the bad ones. It means that you are providing limited assurance. While with process mining, you might provide almost full assurance. I say almost because there are still some soft aspects that cannot be tested through data analytics techniques such as the process mining. It might be like governance or process design. At least yet not possible to test because maybe with AI we don't know what will happen in the future, in the near future. But currently there are some aspects which cannot be tested. And then eventually with process mining, you may come up with an overwhelming number of observations. And then it's the auditor we will see how we can go through those observations. And some of you might say that process mining, you're spending so much time. So you talked about all of these challenges, data collection, data preprocessing, and now in the analysis. However, believe me that the traditional audit approach, it takes quite a lot of time as well, and it is rather manual. Why? Because you're going to go through all of those 50 tickets, and you're going to spend so much time in order to come up with a view on how the process might look like in practice, and also all the time that you spend with interviewing people, with going through several pages of documentation, that one is quite time consuming. Well, process mining is a data analytics technique, and in the end, you also have the key benefit, which is the purpose of the audit of the auditor's job, which is to provide full assurance on that particular process, and you can do that only by taking into consideration the full data. So we have identified the issues for that process. Why don't we go immediately now and issue an audit report? We have this clearance phase in between, and in this clearance phase, the auditors will interact with the business representatives. They will communicate to these business representatives, to the team leaders or to the middle management, the issues that we have identified, and then they will assign to each issue a priority. Because in this case, we identified 5 issues, but you might identify 10, 15, 20. So you need to define a priority to each of the issues. How do you define a priority? You take into consideration the volume of cases that are falling under this issue, but also the criticality. Why? Because the issues that are actually about process conformance, it means that these are not actually abiding to the expected process design. So even if you have only a couple of cases, it is a critical issue that needs to be resolved. And also auditor judgment as well, and the experience and domain knowledge is quite key to defining the right priority for each of the issues. In the end, for all of these issues, you need to define together with the business representatives the actions that will be used to remediate all these issues, and also an owner will be accountable for resolution of the action and an action date as well. So let's see now, how do we perform the clearance for the example process. So for the first one, tickets that are not moved to in progress, this issue, since it's a conformance issue, it's going to have immediately a high priority, and you're going to put in place a new IT control that will make mandatory the step of the in progress. Second one, the multiple changes of assignees. In this case, what you could do is that you could better train the staff, and in order to be able not to perform all this ping pong between each other, and also try to improve the definition of responsibilities and skills, so that the ticket dispatching itself might become almost automated, let's say, at the end of the day. And reopen tickets as well, you could perform some staff training. And the multiple subsequent emails from the client. Let's say that the auditors, they went through all those 300 tickets and they saw all these emails, and let's presume that you got sufficient evidence that the client is not actually complaining, but it's about something else, and it's not about an issue in the end of the day. And what you do, you just raise an observation, and the business actually might put in place a KPI which they measured and they monitor over time to keep track of this. And the last one as well, since it's a conformance issue, we define it as a high priority, and the ticket cannot move forward without fulfilling the step. So how does process mining actually impact all this clearance phase? So in principle and also in practice, we've seen that process mining makes the clearance phase quite smoother. Why? Because process mining, being a data analytics technique, it actually is based on data. And all the issues that you have identified are actually based on they are based on facts which have been stored into the systems. So as we said, we believe that the data which is stored in the systems tells us the real view on how that process is acting, is performing in practice. And usually the business representatives, they don't challenge this. I mean, it's quite hard to challenge the numbers. It's easier to challenge the issues that come out of soft controls, but on these ones it's quite hard. And on the other hand, the business representatives, they appreciate the process mining exercise, and they want to build such things themselves. And also what they do often is that they implement some business monitoring solutions where they define a KPI for each of the issues that we have identified so that they keep track of all of these issues. So I think we're done. We can go now to the audit report. So in the project finalization phase, we have first the audit report. The auditors, they will issue the report to our clients, which is usually senior management. And we advise that it's always good to attach the process, the process map itself into this final audit report, preferably into the relevant, into the respective issues section. And if that's not possible, then you can just attach it into an appendix. But it's always good to include the process mining analysis that you did into the audit report. Why? Because we have seen that senior management is usually triggered, and they usually appreciate this kind of issues that are coming from process mining, which is really you can see where the issue is visually. It has that visual effect, and also the numeric effect as well. Another thing not to be forgotten is the project archiving, because if you need to rerun the same project again next year, after 2 years, when you have the same audit, you don't need to spend anymore 2 weeks, but you can just do it in a couple of hours. So by archiving the whole solution, the software code that you might have developed during the data preprocessing, data collection phases, then all the input data files, raw files, the process mining result files, and then the output files, the documentation that you drafted, all of these things is good to archive them in it, so that whenever you get like an ad hoc request, or whenever you need to rerun the same audit project, you can do it easily. But what does the future hold for process mining in Euroclear? So you can see that we are quite happy about using process mining, and I can say that it's one of the main techniques that we use in our team in data analytics for any audit. Some of the most important audits are done with process mining. We have already touched several IT applications in the company, but as I said, Euroclear is quite an IT-centric company with all those terabytes of data that are passing through our systems. So we still have a lot to do in order to encompass the whole IT applications. And process mining will be one of the pillars towards our quest to go to the continuous auditing. What is continuous auditing? It's doing an audit in a continuous way. It's performing several of those tests continuously and providing assurance. And that will be possible through automated tests with data analytics and process mining. We consider that as one of the key data analytics techniques. I'd like to end my presentation with some key takeaways. So the first one, as I said, it's always good to start with the status event log, but then it's always better to enrich that status event log with other data sets other than the status event log. And what's the objective? The objective is to try to get the full picture of that given process. And I don't think I need to iterate this again. Data preprocessing, you saw that I spent a lot of time talking about data preprocessing. We really consider it a very important step in the project. And if you really need high quality analysis, you need to spend some time there. Process mining can overwhelm you with the number of observations that it will trigger. So the auditor's judgment and domain knowledge is quite key in identifying which one of these observations pose the real risk for the company. And in the end, we truly believe that process mining is not replacing the auditor's job, but it's rather a tool that auditors can leverage from, so that at the end of the day, they could provide what the purpose of the auditor's job is to provide as much assurance, independent assurance as possible. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. So we have time for one question, so you can already think about it. I will start off with a quick question from my side. So, as an auditor, like you said, you have to provide assurance, right? And with process mining, sometimes there's a discussion that the auditor provides additional value to the auditees by providing insight about the process. Like, for example, efficiency questions, maybe they're not relevant from a compliance perspective, but they provide additional value. So how do you discuss this? Is this a side effect? Is this a central thing, something that you intentionally want to provide additional value as an auditor?
Yeah, indeed. As I said, we actually always strive to look also on the effectiveness testing, and not only on the process conformance testing, because we think that that will provide added value on the audit which we're doing, but also it will trigger the awareness of the business so that they could look in their process from another angle which we looked at.
And do they see that? Do they see this as added value also, or?
Yeah.
They do. Okay.
Yeah, indeed they do. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions for Xhentilo? There are so many auditors, so there must be one question. Yes, please, in the back.
My question is basically, if, let's say, when you're collecting data, there are many circumstances when you see there is an issue in availability of data, right? Which from your experience is absolutely necessary, but you're just not able to collect it. So you have to presume it or do something with it to fulfill the entire analysis. In this case, what would your recommendation be?
So the data is not existent?
Yeah. In the company, maybe. But it's absolutely necessary for the analysis. I mean, it's also my day-to-day job, and this is my hurdle. So there are presumptions that I make, but regardless from your expert opinion, maybe what would you recommend in this scenario?
Okay, in this case, I mean, because I'm a data professional myself, so we really try to base the whole analysis on data, and it's if you don't really have this at least these status changes, which is the most minimal event log, then it's quite not possible to provide any assurance on that given process, let's say.
What is the biggest hurdle that you face then in that case? Normally in auditing, what is your biggest hurdle in your experience so far?
So this one is one of them, but it's not usually occurring that the data are not there. What is usually occurring is that the data are there, but we are not able to retrieve the data. So you need to go through a lot of steps, a lot of challenges to get to the final data. And as I said, the issues are more and more occurring with these cloud-based applications, where you are locked in that solution, and that solution, it's quite easy for you to get up and running. But then on the other hand, you cannot retrieve your data in the correct format from the system.
Thank you for the question. Let's discuss further in the break, and let's give another round of applause to Xhentilo. Thank you.
Over.